Hi, everybody. It's Tim Rivers with another great Freedom Friday. And today I'm blessed to have with me Mr. Couy Griffin, who many of you all saw him when he was on last year when we were talking about both his trial and all the problems that were going on in New Mexico. But there's a lot happened since then. And I asked Couy to come back on just to kind of bring us up to speed, not only on his appeal, but on the recent stuff with SCOTUS, because I don't think a lot of people really understood what went on there. That SCOTUS not looking at something is not the same as SCOTUS saying, no, you lose. So, Couy, bring me up to speed here. I think everybody was caught up just about to the beginning of this year, but a lot's happened recently. What's been going on with you, bud?
Yeah, just as about 3 days ago, I got the disappointing news that my petition had been rejected by the United States Supreme Court. And, Tim, it's been a long time coming to finally just get to this point, and it's the biggest disappointment because I still don't have clarity under the law, as you mentioned. The Supreme Court, by them dismissing it, it pretty much allows it. Though they didn't render an opinion saying, yes, we stand behind this, they just kicked it out, which means they didn't feel it to be, I guess, maybe as important of an issue as others to look at. But it's extremely important because it's extremely corrupt. The whole
can be
basis
used against many other people. If they make this one stick, they can play this game all day long, can't they? And just start removing people from public office.
That's why it's so dangerous. The precedents that it could be allowed to set. And like in my case, Tim, after January 6th, there was a very vicious recall that was waged against me, trying to remove me from office. And the people of my county spoke through that recall, the failure of that recall, and said they wanted me to remain in office. The recall only received 26% of the people in my county. So since they couldn't remove me through a recall process, through the legal right way, to remove an elected official, they chose to take me into a civil courtroom on a bench trial before a liberal Democrat judge in another county, in Santa Fe County. They didn't even try me in my own county. And that judge ruled on a very egregious criminal matter, which is insurrection. He found me guilty of insurrection in a civil courtroom, and through a judge's order, he removed me from office and barred me from ever holding office again.
I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life. Frankly, I'm appalled that a civil judge in a civil trial thinks that they can impose judgments about criminal aspects, which have nothing to do with that trial. That's way outside of their bailiwick. And at the same time, the removal of office disturbs me the most because I can see this being used against all kinds of people. And usually, they're going to be the ones that are the most vocal, the ones who refuse to surrender, refuse to back down, and demand that you stand for the rights in America and basically for the rights of America. And yet Here we are. I mean, I just looked at this thing. If I heard a Department of Justice guy say, Couy, if 1512C is overturned by the SCOTUS, we're just going to add more sentence enhancements and bump it back up again so it's equal. I'm just sorry. Did we step into bizarro world somewhere a year or two ago? Because I've never heard of any kind of jurisprudence acting like this.
It's, we always grew up hearing about the political atrocities that happened in China and North Korea and Russia and Eastern Europe. And, and we've always looked down as a country, we've always looked down our nose at those places thinking, how dare those people treat their own people that way? And then you look right here in the good old United States of America, and there's no greater example of the political persecution that's going on right here today. You take the case of Jake Lang, a political prisoner that's been in prison for 3 years and I think 3 or 5 months or something crazy. And he's never seen the inside of a courtroom, and
he's not alone. He's not alone. I got Jeff McKellop, who's a Green Beret, 3 Bronze Stars, sitting over here right around the corner from you in Fort Worth. I got Jeremy Brown, another Green Beret, sitting here in Florida. This is, and these guys have never seen trial. Why? Well, I think they have a lot to say. and they would like to make. I find that the methodology is to punish you as long as they can to get you to go to the plea deal. And I have people that I spoke to somebody not even 10 minutes before we started this, who is considering the plea deal, even though he knows his appeal was gone. But he's been in jail for 3 years. He has a single family. How much can people take?
Tim, I tell you what, I spent 3 weeks in the Washington, D.C. gulag, and I don't know how I could have spent another day. I mean, that place was so torturous mentally, that, I honestly, and I spent 3 weeks in there on a misdemeanor trespass charge. I didn't go inside the Capitol. I stood outside of the Capitol, but they charged me with misdemeanor trespass. And, I mean, they kept me in a cell for 9 days and refused me to take a shower or use the phone to call my attorney or my family. For the first 9 days, I was just in total 24-hour solitary in a box. They pitched me a bag of wet wipes to clean myself with. I mean, I was treated like an animal. Yep. And to think of these guys that are still in those places, I mean, whenever I was in there, Dominic Peziola, I was locked up with Dominic, one of the Proud Boys, I believe. But Dominic wasn't doing good, I mean, Jacob Chansley, the QAnon shaman, he was in the cell right next to me. He was another one that was, I mean, just, those guys, we all suffered. We all suffered. We all suffered tremendously. And it's just a travesty like we've never seen in our country to see what's going on today.
Well, I feel like the government would love to erase all of this. They would love to accomplish their mission and leave no trace. And that was the reason, obviously, why we wrote these books, is because it leaves a trace. Now they're part of history. You cannot get rid of that. But I keep hearing more and more that people want to tell their story. And I'm referred back to the Vietnam era and a famous quote. I've said it a couple of times. It's like, when the prison bars are finally open, the real dragons will fly out. And I think what you've done here, you haven't crushed blocks of coal into dust. You've turned them into diamonds. And now you're going to have to deal with those people when they come out. And they're out. I mean, look at Jake Chansley. He's already on his book, right? I've got Trennis Evans. His book is almost ready. We've got a lot of people who want to tell the story for posterity. What about you, Couy?
I myself personally, I haven't received a dime from any January 6th relief funds. I haven't, I mean, I've continued to try to stand in a place of sacrifice in the same place I've stood since I entered into politics, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. It's going to be interesting to see who the good guys are and the bad guys are. We need answers to questions, many that surround the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. We've never even had an investigation. How did she die? What happened at the hospital? Was she alive when she made it to the hospital? Had she already died? I mean,
you'll never hear
so
that.
Many
Same thing
unanswered questions.
Same thing with Roseanne, right? We'll never hear the truth of that. That was obviously that autopsy was wrong and flawed, and it's been called out, but you'll never hear that truth. And that's why I think it falls to people like you and others who were there that day to record this for posterity. But before I get too far into that, let me ask you something. What do you feel? What's your opinion about civil retribution here for J6ers? Is there a case where we can say all J6ers deserve some kind of injunctive relief, but certainly have an opportunity to sue for the wrongs that have been done to them?
I don't even think we even need to start even thinking about the civil side of this deal, No, I mean, everybody's going to start making money and suing the government and trying to profit off of J6? That was never what January 6th was about.
I agree.
January 6th is about our country and about fighting for justice and not stopping until we do get justice. It's not about writing books and promo codes and selling pillows. I get sick of all that crap. There's too many profiteers, in my opinion. I think that we need to continue to demand justice. The video evidence, the digital footprint of that day will tell the story. I'm very grateful for men like Steve Baker and Free State Will, whatever his first name, Will maybe. But many of those men and women that are digging into the digital footprint of that day, because that's what will tell the story. I mean, that's what the government has been hiding for so long. And that's why they've refused to go to trials with some of these men and women that you mentioned, because through the discovery, there should be access to the videos that tell the story. But yet we have reps like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, oh no, we can't share the videos because they share exits in the Capitol during that time. Meanwhile, they're totally silent on Nancy Pelosi's daughter, following her around on the day of January 6th, recording all of the backroom emergency phone calls. But that's perfectly fine for the Democrats to do that. But the Marjorie Taylors and the others will try to keep the videos from coming out, saying that it could pose security risks to the infrastructure of the building. It's nonsense. The videos need to be played in their entirety, and the videos and further investigations. I appreciate the work of Clay Higgins and some of the other reps that are really holding Director Ray's feet over the fire. All of this testimony in these congressional hearings are right now being recorded to one day be resourced again for these testimonies whenever we have real trials and real juries, and we hold these people accountable for the crimes that they have committed. Whenever Clay Higgins asked Director Ray, were there Trump supporters dressed, or were there FBI informants dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol before the doors were breached? And DeRay quivered and stammered around and couldn't answer as simple of a question as that. Those are the questions that must be posed, and we must dig deep inside of the corrupt hearts in DC to get the truth of what really happened.
So back to your appeal, just briefly, where does this leave you now? I mean, is your appeal still alive?
Sure, you know what? Everything's always alive in the legal system. They'll talk about deadlines and this and that, but one thing's for certain: jurisdictional standing motions can be entered in even after the verdict comes in. They're under no time constraint. Francis Matthews threw out a motion to quash and dismiss that on a jurisdictional standing before trial on illegal grounds. He said that it was written by a licensed attorney when it was really written by me and a friend of mine. But he threw it out under illegal grounds, so therefore that jurisdictional standing motion needs to come back before Matthews. And when that happens, he has no jurisdictional standing whatsoever, even in the civil trial. For just the elementary legal people out there, in a civil trial, you have to prove injury. The very first thing you have to do is prove injury. The plaintiffs that filed this lawsuit against me were from Los Alamos County. Nothing I did as a county commissioner affected these people, and they had no injury to start with. So there's just a lot of other legal angles, I believe, that can be looked at, will be looked at. And I only wish I had some help to look at them. I mean, I'm a pro se defendant in this. I went to trial as a pro se defendant, and it wasn't necessarily by choice. It was because I couldn't come up with $100,000 retainer fee to pay an attorney. I'm broke. I'm just like many other Americans right now. I can barely put fuel in my truck and pay my rent or my mortgage at the end of the month, let alone come up to fight these big legal battles in the courtrooms. I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the infrastructure to do it. But my faith, Tim, lies not in the Supreme Court. My faith lies in God, in the name of Jesus Christ, his son. And that's where my destiny lies, is with the Father. It has since the day I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. So whatever God has in store for me in the future, I just pray to have the faith and the heart to move forward and accomplish the will that he has for me.
And that's kind of sometimes hard to understand. We wonder, why are we standing here? Why did he place us in this position? Why are we enduring all of this? But, answers come in his time, not ours. And I guess making solutions as well.
And when you have the big picture in place and the greater good that you're pushing towards, then the promo codes and the books and the prosperity and the money making and all that stuff isn't as important as saving our country. Right now, 75 miles from me in El Paso, Texas, we have middle-aged fighting men that are pushing past National Guard troops, and they're 75 miles from me right now. Okay, so we have serious security concerns, and we need to keep our eye on the ball right now. We need to get behind President Trump. Anybody wants to generate money for Trump's campaign, because we have got to get him back elected again, or we lose our country.
Yeah, I sometimes, wonder how far have we really gone, because it does seem almost insurmountable. Which agency do we dismantle first, right? When he comes into office, where would you begin to put out this dumpster fire? It's so big.
Why do we need so many internal agencies? Why do we need the FBI? We have our sheriff's departments. We have local law enforcement agencies. And if we need better equipped people on the local level, well, then send them the funding that the FBI is getting. Send that to your local sheriff's department.
Right.
Send them the infrastructure. If your local sheriff's department needs help with investigation, send them the most trained people, but fund localities. We don't need the IRS, the three-letter alphabets. We don't need them. The federal government's only job is to take care of our borders and our national interests abroad, not to legislate and rule and levy the law over the top of the American people. That's not what our republic is.
I think it's going to take a whole lot more people like you, Couy, to get out from behind their keyboard, to walk out of their front door, to begin getting involved in local, whether it's just local elections, or you really decide, hey, I can contribute something to my county or to my state. I'll run for an office. It's a brave thing to do. And I see, like I said, I see so many J6ers who are now passed through this fire, who are just, they're ignited. You're never going to put them out. They are going to run for office. They're going to run for local things. They're going to write books. They're going to create movies. They're going to tell the truth. And I think that's what scares the government the most. But I always have hope that when there's folks like you around, Couy, who just refuse to give up, and so many other people that you and I both know who have put their life and their commitment into this, where they're all in. There's no turning back. That's my hope. That's where I find courage in the mornings.
If we're not all in, and if we stop, we get swallowed up by the enemy, and we will get spit out in places that we don't want to be, which will be prison. So, I mean, local action, you mentioned it, your county sheriffs, the founding fathers were brilliant visionaries. They knew we were going to be in the position we're in right now. That's why they gave the county sheriff such a stronghold. And they put him in charge of the law and gave him a gun and made him the highest jurisdictional officer inside of that county. The county sheriff can keep the unconstitutional laws out of the county and from affecting the people. The only thing the sheriffs lack right now, I believe, are backbone and grit. They need to get gritty. They need to get backbones, and they need to not take no for an answer. They need to stand their ground, and because we're trying to be disarmed right now by the federal government. And if we get disarmed, forget about it.
Well, they're going to have to pry it out of cold, dead hands a lot, I think.
They will, but I tell you what, I stood on that same ground, Tim, and I would have said the same thing, but there for about 2 years, I was disarmed. Yeah. I didn't even have so much as a BB gun in my house. Why? Because I didn't want to go back to the Washington, D.C. gulag. That's the problem with the laws getting on the books. Then they can be used against good, honest American citizens. And then, you either comply or you go to prison. So that's why we can't let this gun legislation go on the books no matter what. We have to fight them off, not on our front doorsteps, but we need to fight them off in the courts and in our legislative houses.
Well, it takes action. People have to find the courage, because courage is what gives us hope. You can't have hope without courage. And I keep telling people, I'm lucky enough to be someplace where the deer and the antelope are playing today. But the reality of it is, we all have a duty as Americans. And if you don't do that, if you neglect your duty, if you don't show up for work, this is what happens. And so Couy, Cowboys for Trump, man, I just really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're just slammed today. I'll urge everybody, just watch what's going on with this case. Watch how this is being used. And if you're sitting here silently, 202-224-3121, 224-3121, that is your congressional switchboard. I hope you have your phone in your hand right now. Get involved.
One more thing, Tim. One more thing while they watch what's going on with me. I currently have an appeal filed on my trespass conviction with the DC Court of Appeals. It's already been, briefs are filed. It's already been orally argued. It's been about 4 months since it was. We should be hearing an opinion back on the trespass charge from January 6th too in regards to the restricted area. So if I can get a positive opinion back on that appeal, it could be the card that makes the house of cards fall, because that's what they do.
April and May are going to be tremendous months for all of us. And we better watch very closely what's happening in DC and around the nation. But more importantly, don't do nothing. Get off your butt, get out there, get engaged. Absolutely. We always tell you, nothing happens unless you make it happen. So, and Couy, you're a guy who makes it happen. Cowboys for Trump.
Appreciate you, Tim.
Really appreciate everything that you do. And more importantly, we appreciate that beacon of light that you show when you refuse to bow a knee. And everybody needs to take a lesson from that. Be an American.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
Right. We'll see you on the next one. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.